These are the new Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds, and they're positioned as a refinement of everything Sony's pulled off to this point. But after living with them for a little while, it still feels like there's a core piece of the experience that's a little fragile. Especially at this price point. What's up, friends? I'm Brian MacDuff, aka BMac, and welcome to another video. So these are the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds, and they promise top-tier sound, elite active noise cancellation, and strong call quality, basically everything you could want at this price point. So then why, after living with them, did one part of the experience still feel conditional? First things first, I do need to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Sony for sending out a pair of the WF-1000XM6s for me to be able to check out. So Sony, thank you. But before we get into performance, we do need to break down design, because the shape of these XM6 buds is either going to disappear in your ear or become the reason everything else feels conditional. The XM6 earbuds follow the same basic design as the last few generations, so you get a bud style body here that sits outside of your ear canal, while the foam tips keep them in place in your ear canal. And you are provided with several foam tip ear sizes to choose from to get that perfect fit and seal in your ear, which is actually probably more important than you might think by the time we get to the conclusion of this video. But with the XM6s, we are now back to a full matte plastic design, so no more part shiny finish like we briefly had with the XM5s. And at launch, there's gonna be two colors of these available, those colors being black or light gray. Now, in terms of comfort, here's the thing. For me, the XM6s feel comfortable. I love wearing them, but comfort isn't the same thing as confidence. The earbuds keep most of their bulk outside of your ear canal, and they're gonna rise above the ear tip, which means that the fit of these in your ear really does pretty heavily rely on that foam tip point of contact in your ear canal itself. So it is the shape and design of the XM6s that could end up deciding everything for you. And once we get into ANC and call quality, you'll see why it's actually sort of a weird problem to have. I do want to point out that Sony did refine the XM6 design to better follow the natural curves of your ear, and the XM6s do feel more improved than the XM5s with a narrower width. But that refinement here doesn't completely eliminate that core fit dependency. I want to be very clear here. These feel fine for me. They are very comfortable, but I could easily see someone saying that they don't quite feel secure enough or fit their ear shape and size quite as well as they would expect them to, and that they find themselves wishing that they had an additional point of contact for additional confidence and security when wearing these, even if it was something as simple as just a little wingtip attachment. So the reality here is that they feel comfortable enough for me, they feel secure enough for me, but that in no way means that that gives me complete confidence that they're gonna feel that way for everyone else. Inside of each bud is gonna be a new driver unit made out of different materials this time around, meant to provide immersive bass with high-end extension. But we'll see, of course, how that actually pans out in just a moment. And for track controls, we do have touch sensors on both buds, allowing you to control everything from volume to mode toggling. And they do seem very responsive with few, if any, accidental touches when you're trying to use them. You do also have the option of using quick access services from supported audio services, which is gonna give you quick music listening simply at the touch of a button. And all of this is capped off with the same IPX4 water resistance rating from the XM5s, meaning you will be fine against your occasional splash of water, or if you get caught in a little bit of rain or you're sweating a little bit. But now let's talk about connectivity, because Sony seems to have checked pretty much every box here. But do these buds still feel effortless when you're using them day to day? One of the biggest upgrades of the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds is a new processor that's going to be more intelligent than the chipset in the XM5s, promising better phone calls and better active noise cancellation performance, but more on that in just a moment as well. We are also getting Bluetooth 5.3 support, along with support for the SBC, AAC, LC3, and LDAC audio codecs, plus multi-point connectivity for connecting up to 2 different devices at once. And I know there's gonna be some viewers out there that are bummed to not see any kind of Bluetooth 6 support here, and I could probably agree that at this day and age, and at this price point, it probably should have been implemented. But for me, in all honesty, I don't see a difference in terms of my needs. I'm totally fine with Bluetooth 5.3, and it satisfies my needs for that right now. You are also getting spatial audio support with head tracking in compatible apps, And while it's immersive, it still of course does depend on content support, but in my testing, it did sound really good. And another little bonus on top of all that is voice assistant control, letting you operate the buds by saying, "Hey headphones," or by connecting to your assistant of choice. And then a couple additional features like speak to chat and a listening mode where you could actually have it set to background music, which is pretty cool. Makes it sound like music or whatever you're listening to is kind of in an ambient background setting, which is pretty good for listening if you're studying, for instance. You don't want it front and center, but it kind of sounds like it's just playing in the room that you're in. Cool mode to check out. You're also getting multiple EQ presets to choose from, plus 2 fully customizable 10-band graphic equalizer slots, and Sony's Find Your Equalizer tool, which you could use if you want help dialing in your sound. You of course also get in-ear detection, which allows for an auto power off feature to conserve battery if you take them out and forget to put them in their case. And you do also have some head gesture features where you can nod or shake your head for different commands with compatible OS and app combinations. And all this is immediately accessible and customizable right from within the Sony Sound Connect companion app. Right within that app, you can see pretty much everything we've discussed thus far. You see explanations on what each setting means, how to adjust it, and it's all very clear and easy to use. But there is unfortunately no kind of location tracking or lost earbud sound emission. That may matter to some users more than others. For me, it's not a deal breaker. Kind of wish we had it, but no kind of location tracking at this time. But one last thing I do want to address here is the low latency mode or LE audio mode of the XM6s. Even with the benefits of LE audio, I would probably suggest that for most users, you don't necessarily use it. Reason being, it actually disables a lot of the features that I think make the XM6s so great. And even if you do use it for the low latency feature, I was only able to get that latency down to around 90 milliseconds. So if you planned on using these for competitive online gameplay, a little bit too much latency, I think, for actually being able to use these for that. Otherwise, these earbuds are incredibly feature rich. Sony really packed in almost everything you'd expect at this tier level. But we all know that if the sound quality isn't exceptional, none of this really matters. So let's talk about it on the XM6s and see whether or not Sony actually delivered here. Like I mentioned earlier, the XM6s do have new driver units now, and these setups were actually tuned by Grammy winners. And how that translated into everyday listening was impressive. In my listening and in my testing, frequency extension on these buds felt strong with representation all the way from the deep bass right through cleanly into the highs. And the soundstage and imaging felt expansive and well separated. And that was right out of the box. Everything sounded premium and enjoyable to listen to across multiple genres, truly like a headphones listening experience, but with earbuds. I will also mention that I found that level of sound quality to remain consistent across the ANC, ambient sound, and off modes, which is important, because that means you're gonna get that level of sound quality no matter what kind of mode you're in or what kind of listening environment that you're in. And the XM6s also do get loud enough for my needs as well. So I never found myself wanting to max out the volume on these, which is good, because that means then you still do have a little bit of volume left in the tank. You never wanna really be maxing it out 24/7. All of which is to say that with the XM6s, technically, I think these could compete with the very best of the best, which is actually one of the reasons why that one little thing holding them back is a little hard to ignore. But with active noise cancellation and the ambient sound modes, that might just end up being where Sony justifies the price. So let's see here if the real world performance actually matched the promise. Built into the XM6s are now a total of 8 microphones, 2 more than we got with the XM5s. And in combination with that new chip, we also do have an adaptive noise cancellation optimizer, whereby the XM6s are going to aim to analyze external noise and wearing conditions in real time, making changes on the fly for better active noise cancellation performance. So much so, in fact, that Sony's claiming that these are the world's best ANC earbuds. But did that actually translate to real world performance? In my testing, yes. The improvement in ANC on these is noticeable, and it handled a wide range of environments very confidently. If active noise cancellation is important to you, these are absolutely gonna hit the mark, and they are an absolute top performer. But on the flip side of ANC is ambient sound mode, otherwise sometimes referred to as transparency mode, and in that mode, performance is also very solid. I will say that the ambient sound mode does sound a little digital at times, with a little bit of sound suppression still taking place, so it's not completely transparent per se, but it's clean, it's powerful, and it competes very strongly in this category. So sound quality is good, ANC is good, the ambient sound mode is good. The performance here in the sound quality category is solid, which is kind of interesting why my slight hesitation doesn't come from the performance of these at all. But first up, before we get ahead of ourselves, with those 2 additional microphones, let's talk about microphone quality, because Sony didn't just add 2 additional mics, they're claiming that this is actually one of the best earbuds for phone calls on the market. Sony's using a combination of AI noise reduction, beamforming microphones, and bone conduction sensors that deliver what Sony hopes is one of the best earbud mic configurations that you could get. But instead of just talking about that, let's put it to the test, shall we? This is what the microphone quality of the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds sounds like in the studio. This is raw audio recorded directly from the XM6s into the voice memos app on the iPhone, hopefully giving you a pretty good idea of what to expect. This is what the microphone quality of the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds sounds like with simulated background noise. This is raw audio recorded directly from the XM6s into the voice memos app on the iPhone, hopefully giving you a pretty good idea of what to expect. This is what the microphone quality of the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds sounds like with simulated wind. This is raw audio recorded directly from the XM6s into the voice memos app on the iPhone, hopefully giving you a pretty good idea of what to expect. So the microphone quality is strong. Even though it's still a little processed there, as you could probably hear, I still think it's completely usable for phone calls and actually better than most microphones on earbuds, at least in terms of what they typically deliver. But now let's talk about battery life, because if that falls short, everything else becomes far less impressive. With the XM6s, Sony is promising up to 8 hours of ANC listening time, or up to 24 hours when including the charging case, which means you'll actually get a little bit more battery life than that with ANC turned off, probably closer to around 12 hours per charge, or 36 hours total. But then of course, a little less than that if you turn on high-end features like LDAC and DSEE Extreme, which could net you only around 5 hours of ANC listening time, or maybe around 15 hours total, all of course depending on your features and volume. And if those numbers sound familiar, it's probably because they should. They seem to be pretty much identical to the battery performance of the Sony WF-1000XM5s, so there's nothing dramatically new here, but also nothing disappointing. With these buds, you're essentially capable of getting through an entire day of listening without ever even having to think about battery. And you do also get quick charging with the XM6s, whereby you just pop them into their charging case, and just a 3-minute charge could actually provide about an hour of listening time. In terms of recharging, that could once again be done either via USB-C, or despite the case's rather slim size, you do also have Qi certified wireless charging here, so you can just pop these on a wireless charger and charge them up that way as well. But after all of this having been said, we could finally come back to the question we started with. If the Sony WF-1000XM6s deliver top-tier sound, ANC, and call quality as promised, why do they seem like they're still a little bit more fit dependent than maybe they should be at this price point? There are so many things about these earbuds that I love, so I actually had a hard time coming up with much of anything to criticize them for. But I did experience that sometimes, and for some people, these could still depend pretty heavily on whether or not their design and their shape works for your ears in particular. Which is why the only real hesitation I have does come down to their physical design and if they fit you comfortably. For me, they're comfortable, they feel secure enough, and they stay in place, and the sound really shines. But since I review tech for a living, and I gotta keep it real, I just don't know that I could completely with 100% confidence say that this experience will automatically translate to everyone else, and at this price point, that little bit of confidence difference could matter. Even something small, like a subtle wingtip attachment, or there's some kind of additional point of contact when you're wearing these in your ear, beyond just the foam ear tip, could have reduced just that little bit of variability that these are presenting entirely. But if you've had good experiences with Sony's recent earbud designs, there's a very strong chance that you're gonna love pretty much everything about the XM6s. If, however, you've struggled with this earbud design and shape before, I'd be just a little bit more cautious. They are not flawed, they are not inconsistent, they're just slightly more dependent on ear shape than something at this price maybe should be. But if that shape works for you, these Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds really do compete for being some of the best earbuds you could buy. As always, for the latest deals, prices, promos, and information for the Sony WF-1000XM6 earbuds, you can of course always head to my affiliate link, bmac.link/WF-1000XM6, or of course, as always, there will be clickable links in the video description box and in the comment section below, so check those out. But now with that having been said, now that I filmed this video, I get to kick back, relax. I put these away. I should put them back in. Whoa! I will see you guys in my next video.